This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19 and a half years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. Find more at pellanorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella windows.
Let's keep focused on what we really do well and what at the end of the day kind of pays the bills. And as long as we keep getting that in a good position and a good predictable, scalable, consistently profitable growth bottom line, then I think then we have the bandwidth and ability and we have the skill to look at those other opportunities.
Hi, welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I'm joined with Ryan Jones, the president of Stonegate Builders. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. I love it. I think you have the best voice so far in the business. I was giving you crap before. He's got a nice, low, gravelly voice. So this thing's going to be great on audio.
Yeah, this will be good. This could be a whole new venture I could kind of get myself into.
I think
radio broadcasting.
Hey, the Twins broadcaster I just saw on the paper today, after 40 years, he's stepping down as the day-to-day play-by-play caller.
Well, hopefully if they're listening and they like what they hear, they'll reach out.
Do you know anything about baseball?
Yes. I mean, I watch a lot of baseball.
All right.
My son plays baseball. And
Perfect. So can we consider this your audition tape?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I'll go ahead and give the approval. You can submit that.
We'll send it to the poll lads and we'll see where it goes.
Perfect.
All right. Don't forget me when you're on Oprah.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about your history. So in doing you and I have met a few times. We met at a CBUSA conference luncheon deal here a couple months ago. But I was just checking, your history is pretty robust. So currently you're the president of Stonegate Builders, and I'll give you a space in a minute to talk about that. But looking back, I'm just going to read this out for the audience. You were at Metro Studies for 12 years. You're at DR Horton in research. You're at the Pulte Grove Director of Market Intelligence. So it sounds like the FBI or spy agency, which is pretty cool. And now you've been the president of Gagne for 2 years, but you've been there for 8.
Yep.
That is some serious building resume. Why don't you walk us a little bit through what some of those companies are? I don't even know what Metro Study is.
Yeah. So actually right out of college is when I got into Metro Study, and they were primarily a kind of market research firm who worked with builders, developers, municipalities, really all about land acquisition, land development, feasibility studies, product pricing, amenities, everything. I mean, they were kind of like your any of your larger scale projects. You would kind of go to them to say, hey, we've got 100, 200 acres. We're looking at, mixed use of detached single family, maybe some attached townhomes, maybe some villas. Tell us based on demographics, based on absorption, based on just overall market conditions, how you feel, that does what we're proposing, does the market support that? And then with that, what kind of, timelines would we be able to, expect based on certain price points? And so it was really a very interesting opportunity for me to learn all about different types of residential construction. That was in the Chicago market. So I'm originally from the Chicago area. So it was one of those where I worked with, the top 20, 30 builders, top 10, 20 developers, top municipalities, and pretty much every month I was working on a different land development.
That's
project.
That's talk about some amazing data entry, because you were there for 12 years. I mean, you must have learned a ton about obviously where your current role now, I imagine, as you get into these, bigger regional builders and state builders and even the nationals, you could probably relate a lot to. I assume you have to control land. And do you still employ, out of curiosity, companies like Metro Studies even now, or you have the knowledge now where you don't actually need to hire a company to do that?
Yeah. And I mean, now because we're a little bit on the smaller scale with Stonegate, we don't really do as in-depth of studies, but we used Metro Study when I was at DR Horton and at Pulte. So I was kind of leading a lot of their internal, kind of feasibility and analysis through those.
So would a lot of it be obviously analytical, I would assume, but
Mhm.
I assume modeling. You'd have some sort of modeling, and I mean, walk us through a little some of the what are some of the stats that you would look for? What did this actually look like in actual practitioner?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you were looking at was the demographics. So, does the incomes, does the population growth, does the submarket that you're in, does that support the product that you're proposing? The school districts, future planning, and then also looking at potential future competition. So if another, couple builders were also, had something coming down the pipeline through the city, well, that's going to obviously impact your potential absorption as well.
Out of curiosity, was Metro Studies only consumed with construction industry, or did it do other industries as well?
Nope, just new residential construction.
Wow.
Yeah.
How big of a company are we talking about?
So it was nationally. We probably covered, of the top kind of MSAs at the time I was there, about 65% of new construction in the country. So we were in all major kind of MSAs, covering those areas.
So you were working not just in the Chicago area. You were just based out of there. So you would take in Arizona or California or what? Would you do market research for anyone or specific to
Chicago is what I did.
I see.
We had kind of offices in each location.
Gotcha.
That they would kind of handle their market, because the reality is every with housing, it's very local.
Yep.
And it's extremely difficult to take certainly any advice from someone who's, in Arizona about what we're doing in Minnesota or what we're doing in Chicago. So to have, kind of those boots on the ground, which is what also the company did is every quarter we'd drive the streets of all new developments, counting houses. Basically, we had the plat map, kind of on our lap. That's what I actually also did when I moved up here to Minnesota to open up the division here.
Was it those old Hudson road maps?
Yep. Yep. When I moved up here, I had those old.
Are they in every state?
I don't know.
So for those that are probably below the age of 35 or 30,
I don't think they would know.
Yeah, you guys know what Google is. Before Google, there was these things called the Hudson maps, right?
Yep.
And you get them at your local gas station, and you'd flip through them, and they had, I don't know what the segment of, you could get, macro and micro details, but I sometimes now wonder, it's so easy to get to places, right? Yeah. And, every once in a while you'll go the wrong way on a GPS or whatever, because you're mindlessly not even thinking about it. But back in the day, man, you really needed those things to know where you're going.
Yeah. I mean, I would have, again, even coming into a new market when I moved up here, I mean, that was everything. Everywhere I was going, it was all marked up. I had my little developments on there, and we were driving. Again, when I moved up here to do it, 13 county MSA. So I mean, I was up in Isanti County and Chisago out driving new developments and coming into the neighborhood with the plat map that I got from the county, and literally marking this house is under construction. This is a vacant lot. This is a house that's lived in.
Wow.
And all of that data was input into a program that then we were able to use to help do our market research.
That is super fascinating. Before that, I saw you'd went to school for business. Mm-hmm. I mean, how did you why construction? Did you have any family in construction? What made you interested in construction?
Yeah, my old man was on the kind of construction lending side of stuff, and worked for banks. Sure. And financed a lot of the bigger projects in Chicago. And so as a kid, it's one of those where I was always in the car or driving through projects, and he's talking about, oh yeah, we did this one and we did that one, and talking about all the different builders and developers. And so it's just kind of something I was always used to, was driving, residential developments.
I mean, that reminds me, obviously we're both very passionate about construction. We've been in it for a long time. And I think there's so many opportunities for, anyone, but I'm thinking of young kids of America, right? The American dream is often tied to, home ownership and building of homes. But I think there's kind of a place, regardless of what your interest or skill set is. I was thinking about your dad, right? So he's into lending. Well, unless you have money, or else people can lend you money or borrow money or mortgage and all these different things. You can't build something. And so that's just one part. I think a lot of people wouldn't think of a banker as part of a builder, but they're a huge part of building.
Right.
Huge. And then, obviously you have, architects and designers, and then obviously, our trade partners who, without them, we can't build anything.
Yes.
And so we've talked a lot about that on the podcast, and I think it's really important. But I haven't thought until you just said it that, actually having a banker, I've thought that I really want to work even with Minnesota Housing First, with James Vogeley there. We've talked about doing kind of a high school tour of getting like, now I'm going to add a banker, but have like a banker, a mortgage officer, a builder, a designer, an architect, a framer, HVAC. It'd just be really cool to represent all aspects of the industry. And now with obviously social media and marketing, I mean, you could, there's huge upside. I mean, really, it's just a business that just happens to be building homes. Right. So that means it can really fit any interest or any career path if you wish.
Absolutely.
So, and
obviously all of them are, extremely critical to us getting to the finished product. I mean, obviously without the financing, none of us are even able to do what we do.
Right. Yeah. How, so what brought you to Minnesota?
So the company that I was working for in Chicago Metro Study was looking at expanding into the Minnesota market. Yeah. And I think, I was, benefited from already being in the Midwest and in cold climate that they probably couldn't get many other people who were down in Florida and Texas and Arizona markets to move up here to open up an office. But they figured the young kid from Chicago is probably comfortable enough with the cold weather that we could probably talk him into it.
It's so funny when people talk about that. I mean, obviously you're from Chicago, I'm from Minnesota, but people talk a lot about the weather, but like when you're born here, honestly, I don't even really think about it.
Right.
People talk about it all the time as like a barrier to entry, but I won't even have the perspective. In fact, it's a barrier for entry for me to go south.
Yeah.
I do not want to go somewhere between like April and September. I do not want to go further south than I already am. Plus it's the beautiful time here.
Yes, exactly. So I moved up here in 2005.
Okay.
And then kind of launched the division here and kind of built that up, and then really wanted to kind of shift from the land and the development side over to more of the operation side. I really wanted to be on the building side versus again kind of the land side. Yep. And that's when I took a position with Horton. Mm-hmm. Spent about 2 years there. Great organization, very disciplined. They know what they're good at, and they do it very well on a very large scale. Had some great people in that organization that I worked with that, again, really kind of I was very fortunate to learn a lot about the business, the scalability of production building. Which has served me, to what I'm doing today.
I mean, honestly, that's one of the most things I'm most excited even talking to you about. But obviously, compared to the Pulte and the Lennars, you're a small fish to them, right? Yeah. I mean, they're for sure thousands of units a month probably across the United States. But the point is, it's like when you get to scale, I'm a company of 5, so I'm very small. I mean, we have a lot of trade partners, obviously, so let's call it 100. But, you go to a Cambria, they have 2,000. Mm-hmm. You go to a Pella or a Marvin or any of these big manufacturing companies. It's just because it's not what I do. I kind of get enamored by things I'm not really in, but I appreciate the business side of it. Yep. And I'm just like, wow, this is an operation. Just the amount of people and organization to make this all work. I'm kind of enamored with it and sort of just like want to tip off my hat and clap a little bit. But, even hearing you talk a little bit just briefly about DR Horton, I'm just thinking the same thing. Like, wow, I just can't imagine producing that many homes. Yeah. And just the scale of organization. So you felt like you learned a lot during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, I wouldn't be where I'm at without having that opportunity and having the people that were there to, kind of help me understand a lot of that. And, that's really where, all comes down to, one's kind of success is, who your influences are, who you have an opportunity to learn from and be surrounded by. And I've been very fortunate, through all of my career to really be surrounded by some great people, that have really, helped, bring me along and help push me into kind of learning more and taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. So then you went to Pulte for Director of Market Intelligence. That sounds very, very, NSA.
Yes, for sure. It was extremely important. No. So they are also, Pulte as an organization are very analytical, very research driven as a company. And I had a friend that I had kind of come up in the business with. You may know Jamie Tharp, who's the president. She's the president of Pulte now.
Okay.
She wasn't at the time, but she was actually the vice president of sales at Pulte. But she was over there, and they were looking for this position, and I, in kind of the desire to continue to learn and grow, it's good to have experiences in different organizations.
Yeah.
And so there was a huge difference, even though Pulte and Horton, essentially to the consumer may look like very similar. They're producing similar style homes, similar price points, similar product. They were definitely, at the time I was at both of them, run very differently, and which was great. I was only at Pulte for about 6 months. It was not my, kind of style, but I learned a lot about kind of a lot of the research, a lot of the discipline, a lot of the metrics, and really that fed into what I'm using today a lot in regards to dashboards, to how to run the business.
And when you say dashboards, you're talking about like specific KPIs, or what do you mean by a dashboard? Okay.
Yep. Obviously one of the challenges as you become bigger and scaling stuff is keeping track of where you're at throughout the life cycle of your build process, on the front end, soft cycle, through the hard cycle, through all the different stages of construction. Not saying it's any easier with 4 or 5 homes, but on a scale to do 80, 90 throughout the course of a year, it's tough to keep all those moving pieces kind of going. And
I mean, actually, close to home right now, we're trying to develop our own KPIs. It's been long overdue. And I've had some that I just didn't officially call them KPIs or have my little score sheet. Out of curiosity, when you run a much bigger operation, plus you've seen these others, how big, so let's use Pulte's, for example, how big would their dashboard be? And when I say, like, let's just say KPI. So for those, key points of interest, for those that don't know what a KPI is out there, but basically it would just be a 1-page sheet, 5 items, 3 items, 10 items, like how, and is it each department? Walk us a little bit through what you've seen with the bigger companies, and maybe even how you've employed them, with your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones that you find most successful is if you can get everything on 1 page,
Okay.
To kind of have all your key metrics that are there, so that on any given time you're looking at all the information that you need. And then it's really just the kind of supporting documents behind it to kind of that rolls up to the data.
Sure.
And that really is what I saw at Pulte, was really what kind of opened my eyes to that. Is in our weekly meetings, we'd all get our weekly update with all the numbers, and that was what we went through. And so he was very disciplined on staying on top of all of that, and that's really what I've been able to incorporate in with Stonegate when I started there, and we launched Stonegate Builders.
Well, just because I think it's interesting for those to hear, like, what would be, let's say, your top 5, or what do you find most valuable for your KPIs?
Yeah. One, we're always looking at margin, gross margin, certainly, in ours, because, we're pre-priced. So one of the big things that is a challenge, with that is, you're setting your pricing on all your stuff as you're selling it. And of course you're not building it, you're not finishing building it for, 6 to 9 months after. So to really kind of make sure that you have full control of your costs and what you're starting at, in terms of your starting gross profit, to really then where your ending gross profit is.
A little difference between us. I assume you're doing fixed pricing on your homes, and I do mostly cost plus. So how often are you checking your KPIs? Is it every 2 weeks, once a month? How often are you?
Every 2 weeks we run a report. So we have we're in Builder Trend.
Yep.
And we have all of our jobs in Builder Trend, and we have, and I know you guys use Builder Trend as well, and we really rely on custom fields in the job that we can add and kind of create, to where we're filling in a lot of the dates in terms of first design meetings, when second design meeting, when 100 selections are 100% approved, out for POs. Dig date, and then every single part in the schedule for tracking purposes, so that we can really kind of see our schedule, our adherence to that schedule, and then the soft cycle and hard cycle.
I'm very familiar with Builder Trend. We've used it now for a little over a year, and obviously they have phenomenal marketing on top of it. But like the bigger guys like DR Horton and Pulte, would they have their own custom software, or would they be, they're custom software?
Yeah, they have their own internal that's obviously all built for their businesses.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. Adaptive is an AI technology that we use for all our cash flow management. If you're in construction, you know how difficult this is. The days of importing all your invoices, cost coding them, asking 10 people in your office where they get coded, is this job approved, is this invoice approved, making notes, all of that is now done through AI. Your invoices get automatically uploaded. After that, all you have to do is cross-check its accuracy per the jobs. This is now saving us hours per job per month, because with a click of a button, you can now have the draw process automated, which has been a complete game changer. On top of that, it's going to track your lien waivers as well as your certificates of insurance, making sure that everyone is in compliance before their bills are paid. This is saving us hours and hours per job per month, all with a click of a button. If you want to know more, check out adaptive.build. Additionally, we interviewed Matt Calvano on episode 15 of the Curious Builder Podcast. You can find out more about it on our website as well at thecuriousbuilderpodcast.com. This episode is brought to you by Alpine Hardwood Flooring. They've been our partner now for over a decade, installing all our wood floors on all our new homes as well as our remodels. And on a personal level, Adam and Anthony Jankala, the owners, are just absolutely amazing people. They've been so supportive of my career, as well as doing anything we need to make sure that our clients are happy. And they work so well with our other vendors and trade partners at not only protecting their product, but also ensuring everyone else's looks great. So if you're looking for a wood floor or for a refinish, I highly recommend Alpine Hardwood Flooring. Find them at alpinehardwoodmn.com or alpinehardwoodmn on Instagram.
And for you guys, are you guys using all their financials, their financial tabs as well?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just curious how that works.
And we tie in with, QuickBooks.
Yeah, of course.
But
Yep. I've heard they bought Co-Construct.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of interesting, right? Co-Construct bought CBUSA, and then they didn't know it, but then Builder Trend had bought Co-Construct, which now owns CBUSA. It's just kind of interesting how these big companies work a little bit, anyway, just from a cost plus standpoint, trying to navigate some of the back end financials. I know from a fixed bid standpoint, we do a few projects a year, but most of our stuff is cost plus. And so navigating some of that is a little trickier, I think, than I don't know why I don't get that dialed into it. So,
yeah. So that's, obviously one of the big ones. Our soft and hard cycle is something that we track just to kind of make sure that we're, where we need to be.
And explain that. So that would be your sales cycle to when you actually construction starts.
Yep.
Is that what you consider
soft cycle? Like, again, we're on the PA side to when we're digging.
Okay.
And
so how does that become a metric? You're just basing it on time. So you have a design contract in June and you dig in October. So you've got however many month span that is.
Days, yep.
Okay.
And again, we have different, so we build, we have kind of 4 different collections that we build. Our East collection, which is more of our entry level price point, we're $550 to $750, and then we build up to $2 million. So
are you talking both companies now, Gagne and Stonegate, just Stonegate?
Just Stonegate, yeah. Our custom division, Gagne, builds probably $2 million to $5 million.
Okay.
So
yeah, we'll talk a little bit about them in a minute. This is really fascinating. So we've got margin percentage, we've got days soft, we've got hard cost. Now you're delineating between the two ranges. What do you call it? East Coast and West Coast?
Well, we have our collections. We have East collection, West collection, North and South.
And those are really just names to break up price points?
Yeah. Our West collection are our bigger 60-foot wide product. Our North collection is our 50-foot wide 2-story. Our South collection are our villas, so
that's fine.
Double of it.
Sure.
So yeah, those are.
So you're just doing a count. So like if you did it in the month of October and you had 3 Wests, 2 Easts, 1. That's how you're kind of.
And we break those up into each, so we know our collection. Kind of soft cycle time might be 30 days on a North. It might be 45 days on a West. We also kind of break that up by whether it's a pre-sold. Or a quick move-in or spec home, inventory home.
Okay.
Because obviously, when you're doing your own inventory home, you don't have a client, a customer to kind of, with it, work
Goes a lot
along their
faster.
schedule. Yeah, goes a lot faster. That's
Do you
for sure.
do you typically have all your selections made before you break ground on a custom or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will not dig without.
That's so funny. I think I can speak for sure myself, but I don't think I'm alone in this, that for a long time, well, really, I've been building for 20 years. And it's only been the last year and a half where, I mean, we're not even perfect about it, but like we try so hard to have all the selections made before we start.
Mhm.
But, clients get so excited. And unfortunately, I guess I'm good at sales, so I do get them very excited. But then to get them excited to get into architecture, get into design, and, my poor production team, they're constantly like, Mark, you can't let us start
Right.
until it's done. And I agree with them. I've heard the analogy of like, it's trying to build an airplane while it's flying.
Yep.
And like, why do we think that's a good idea?
Right.
Speed is not at the end, your net speed is not actually faster.
Right.
So anyway, you guys have it way figured out better than us.
Well, I mean, we're always learning. We're always looking for, ways to improve on that. And,
Yeah.
and, we sometimes, we talk about discipline for sure. But, there's always things that we can be a little bit tighter and firmer on.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. What others on your KPI? So we've got 4 items or 6 if you break out your KPI dashboard on the east-west. What else is on your dashboard?
yeah, I mean, our monthly goals are on there, overall annual goals as well. Neighborhood, we're in about 8 to 10 neighborhoods. So all of our neighborhood goals are on there that we update each.
So the neighborhood goal would be, hey, neighborhood Apple Valley or whatever, for lack of a better description, has 10 homes sold that month.
Yep.
So it could roll up into KPI number 3, which is east, west, whatever.
Yep.
It's just another reflection of like, it's going to show you trends of which neighborhoods are probably selling better.
And what we have for our goals, kind of projections or goals versus actuals to kind of see where that falls. We have it broken up, also sales by plan. We have about 16 to 20 preset plans.
Mm-hmm.
So tracking that, so we kind of see, what the take rate is on those, sales by neighborhood. And
Out of curiosity on the fixed plan, so you said you had 16, what does it take for one of the plans to drop off? Like, hey, if this goes below 10%, this plan is no longer in favor. We're dropping it off our menu kind of thing.
That's, primarily each year we'll kind of look at, and invariably the minute you take one off,
that's the one they want. So true.
I mean, and we do that we're trying to do that with our elevations as well. Because it's obviously on the plan, the blueprint side, it's maintaining them. That is a ton of time. And if you're not taking it, if no one's buying it and you're having to update it and maintain it, you're throwing money away.
Right. So when you're maintaining, are you regularly pricing those out like every month, every 30 days, or how are you doing that? So you have 16 offerings. If, I came in off the street, how quickly could you give me pricing on that home? If I wanted to sign, what would be, I'm ready to go. I want to build a house right now. This is the lot. I'm sure it doesn't happen a lot, but it probably happens a fair amount of time. How quickly, I mean, for us, it probably takes us 30 to 45 days to price out a plan, but I'm not talking the fact like, hey, I had to design this house.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother conversation. How long would that?
We sit down right there. I mean, we have a program that we
So it's
built.
already ready to go.
Yep. We have a program that we built in Excel, and we sit down with the
Plug and
client.
play.
Yep. And you pick your plan, your lot, your elevation. It's actually become quite the large spreadsheet and tool, and it's been very successful for us to be able to kind of price out all of our options. So we have, everything. You can price 100% of the house in 30 minutes.
So your real estate agent is doing that
Yep.
internally, so they can do it right in front of the client. I mean,
Yep.
they just put it right up on the screen. And
Yep. You share right here, talk through it. Like, okay, you want a sunroom, you want a vault in the sunroom, you want your bonus room, you want gourmet kitchen, upgrade appliances,
that's
floor.
Man, you guys have it so much. I mean, that's just so amazing that you can dial it in that quickly, that great. How often are you updating your back end numbers so you know that those numbers are accurate?
Every month.
Okay, there you go. So let's say I'm the drywall provider, and so you have these 16 plans. They go to how many trade partners would you roughly bid out on this kind of thing?
It's 30.
30 drywall companies?
No, not 30 drywall companies. I thought you meant total.
Oh,
30,
sorry.
on 2 to 3
Okay.
on any individual item.
You can see hands in my head. I was like, I don't even know if I know 30 drywall companies.
I
That's
just meant
incredible.
Overall,
Yeah,
that we
gotcha.
ask,
Okay.
of our
Because you're getting
core.
you're getting windows, drywall,
getting the
wood
big
floor.
ticket.
Yeah, gotcha.
Big
And then
ticket.
in allowance items you can kind of fill in based on expertise or
Correct.
yeah, okay, that
and
totally
estimating. I mean, we have that.
totally makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
We do. We primarily, again, we do have great relationships with our trade partners. We've been through a lot over the years, which is also, I think one of the big reasons for our success is obviously who you partner and align with, but so we also are being aware of not asking them to do repetitive work every month on everything, but we do competitively bid things out, just kind of keep everything straight.
well, I was kind of thinking too, like, let's say we'll just pick drywall. Let's say, the West Coast, the Malibu house.
Yeah.
Does that exist? The
Yeah.
Malibu house?
No,
Oh,
we use lake names.
Lake names. Okay. So the Lake Tahoe.
There you go.
Yeah. So the Tahoe, I priced that out. It's a $20,000 drywall package. You mean, when let's say, XYZ drywall company gets it and they would just check, hey, have my numbers gone up or down? And they would either just update or resubmit their bid. I mean, it should be pretty quick for them. Like if
Yep.
there's been material changes, right?
Yep.
And how long would those proposals usually be locked in on their side? Like 30 days, 40 days, 60 days? It depends.
It depends.
Yeah.
Things have obviously changed a little bit. I mean, before we would have much longer locks
Yeah.
in terms of stuff, and we're really also working towards unitized pricing.
What does that mean?
So basically having a unit price for every single, piece of material that goes into the house. So every, we know what the one sheet of drywall is, 1 2x4. And so we're basically, then we own our takeoffs with our floor plans. So all of our plans are in a system where we know exactly the count of everything going.
So
into the
now,
house.
so basically,
So
I bet you the suppliers probably like that, because now you just tell them like, hey, I want 300 sheets of sheetrock. What's your price? They don't have to do anything.
Correct.
That's kind of nice. And then if you're wrong, it's sort of on you.
Right. Yeah. And there's pros and cons to that. Again, once you get down to the unitized, it's a little easier to go back to them and just say, hey, can I get, 50 cents off of this? And we can really get super lean on those things when you own your own, as opposed to these lump packages of
Right.
like, oh yeah, this will be 300 when really it's, 260.
Right.
They're padding it for stuff. So it's been a big, definitely a big project.
Do you know any custom builders that do unitization? That seems like a big task.
Don't.
Yeah.
It'd be tough. You'd have to have the software and the program and the time to do it, because it takes a while to trace your house. You're in a tracing program, and essentially you're tracing every single piece in the house.
So how many estimators would you guys have?
So I kind of would say more of our operations team. There's 4.
Okay. Wow. And so let's say I'm working on, the Tahoe house. We're going to West Coast on all these today. Do they do one house all the way through when they're tracing this, or are they just responsible for just drywall in all the homes? How do you break up that workload?
Yeah, I mean, because we're just kind of getting started in that. Right now, we just have them tracing the house,
Okay.
and then that kind of merges in with another plan, and then it basically kicks out that, again, you need 300 sheets of...
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm thinking of how many people would have to hire to do this.
Yeah.
So, okay, not going to happen. All right. What else is on your KPI? Are we done with KPIs?
Yeah, I mean, what we talked about are kind of the main drivers.
Yeah, I think
of
it's.
what we're
Do you?
looking
I mean,
for.
just because I'm always thinking about sales, I assume do you guys track like, calls or meetings, or how do you track like, your cost to acquire a customer? How does that work?
Yeah, we've started to get into utilizing Builder Trend on the lead side, which allows us to have a little bit more visibility into that kind of conversion rate. But some of that also is obviously dependent on the agents putting in the information.
Yeah.
And so we're still working through that. Really more right now, it's just about, okay, let's just try to get in the good habit of, if you have a lead, let's get as much information in here and then start kind of tracking it through that life cycle to see how our conversion rate is. But, that we do a weekly traffic survey with our agents that goes out on Sunday nights and just kind of says, how many groups did you have through your models? And then how many, how'd they come in? Was it drive by? Was it website? Was it, because you sent them an email or something, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. How many, out of curiosity, so we'll kind of focus now on the companies here, but on Stonegate, how many homes are you guys building a year now?
We do about 100 to 125.
Okay, so very fair. And Gagne, how many would they do, your sister company?
Yeah, so they do about 10 to 12 homes.
Okay, so they're the highly. So is there any overlap where someone will come in, and how do you know how do you know which company is going to handle it? Someone comes in and says, "Hey," because you essentially have your fixed pricing, right?
Mhm.
The Tahoe.
Mhm.
Then I assume some of those plans could be semi-custom,
Yeah.
customized, or even full custom. It sounds like a little bit.
Yep.
At what point does that client all of a sudden leave Stonegate and have to go to Gagne? Is it price point or complexity?
I think
Or?
it's complexity. It's kind of, and our agents who are out there kind of working with these clients are more, kind of veteran ones that really can, understand the needs of what client might be, where they're kind of leaning towards. So you can tell by what questions they're asking, how they're feeling about stuff, to say, I think we want to put you in our custom. I think you have some really specific, needs or wants, and we think this is better suited over here, and then vice versa. And so, obviously we're all one company. We're just kind of separate divisions. We want to be successful in both ones. So we're really kind of supportive of going into the Stonegate side or going into the custom side.
I've seen a lot of builders do this over the years, and maybe this is a good time to talk about it because I find it highly interesting. So Gagne was the original company, correct?
Yep.
How long ago did they start? You know how old they are?
Yeah. So basically 1989.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's
was
been
when
around for
Gagne
a
Homes
long
started.
time.
Yep.
Wow. And through the years, they were kind of building in the 10 range, or what kind of numbers were they hitting?
Yeah, I think anywhere really from 10 to maybe 80 might have been at
That's
one
a huge
point,
range. Yeah.
on kind of that, and they've over the years had evolved from actually doing some production stuff early on to then doing more of the semi-custom custom stuff, and really what kind of brought on the introduction of Stonegate is trying to juggle 60 to 70 semi-custom homes is extremely difficult.
What was so did they hire more people? Did they just do a division? Like, so when this split, walk me through like how, for those out there that have fairly large companies, I'm thinking of a couple of them, and, sometimes they just stay as one bigger company. And I even know one, and they're in our market, right? So Streeter, I believe,
Yep.
at one time had Elevation.
Yep.
In my understanding, it's like sometimes they have a lot of architecture work, and I'd love to bring Steven on or Nate and talk to him about this, but because they're obviously during this time, but I'm just as a consumer loving their work and just being a fan of building, watching, hey, they're doing, it's like a branding, a marketing exercise. And I've heard before sometimes that when you have two companies that compete for the same buyers, you're sort of cannibalizing your own sales, which I don't understand how that works, because either way, the customer is going to buy. So you're fine unless both companies somehow frustrate the client and they go somewhere else. Do you know?
That could be.
I mean, can you speak a little bit because they ended up shutting down Elevation and going back just to Streeter. Now I'd have to ask them to actually know why that was. But I'm just kind of curious because you guys have split and it seems like it's going really well.
Yes. But it wasn't an immediate, clear, clean, separation. We were really kind of running everything, together, and which at times could be, present some challenges both to the consumer and to, those of us internal. And I think, just like how, in any company, having discipline, having clarity, and consistency is what's going to lead you to success. And so over the, last several years is when we've really kind of, figured out what the right, mix of how you separate these two, how you put, certain people in the right position, and then just kind of define it and be disciplined on that. And so, I think, yes, today we're in a really good place with the separation. But, there was some, few little challenges.
Kind of reminds me like you have a twin brother, but one person's into hockey and the other one's into football, and like both identical twins want to have their own identity.
Yep.
I imagine that if I was in your position, like I would support my brother, but I also kind of want to beat him a little bit.
There's a little healthy competition there. But I think the thing that really helps with it is both. So John, who runs our custom division, we're in the trenches building out both of these over the last 7 years. So we were working together. We're friends. We're very much supportive of each other. So we both want to see each other succeed.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like a family.
Yep.
How do you guys have to compete for, like, what are some of the challenges there? You'd alluded to that, you're in a good place now, but early on, was it identity, clarity? Was it the fact that I'm guessing it's all of these things, but was it you're competing for the same resources? Like, hey, I've got that cabinet guy. No, I've got that cabinet. How walk me through some of those early challenges.
Yeah, and that we actually probably managed pretty good. I think it was really more the, I think on both sides, I think it was what we were able to and how we were able to deliver it to the customer. And I think the kind of the gray area created some challenges as we were trying to stay very disciplined with Stonegate and say, hey, these are your set offerings. These are your set options. They would kind of be like, well, but don't you build custom homes too? Like, you can do this.
Right.
And then, of course, a salesperson is like, well, yes, we can. And of course, they want to get the sale.
Right. So they're going to do it.
And they're going to. And it just really made it difficult. And it was difficult for us to, again, even stay consistent with our trades to say, hey, this is, we are trying to be very disciplined. And this is what you guys said we're going to do. That's what we're doing. We weren't kind of doing that.
Right. How did you fix it?
Again, really, just, accepting and acknowledging the problem, owning it and recognizing that we just really needed to kind of separate and say, this is Stonegate and these are the set plans and this is how we need to do it. And if you want something different from what we can do, then you need to go to custom. And I think once everybody, really understood internally. I mean, I think some of it was just internally. We had this, some people just, liking the idea of doing both. And obviously, custom homes are they're sexy, they're exciting, they're big, they're cool, they're all these things. I'm not saying our homes aren't either, but production can sometimes be like, oh, geez, boring production. And it's like, but we have to know what we're doing in both of them for them to be successful. And they're both extremely strong in and of themselves, as long as everybody is there, supporting.
Well, and I mean, ultimately, no matter how you're building a house of size, complexity, or whatever, building is not an easy endeavor. It's, if anyone has done a DIY project themselves, they can relate to this better. And it's messy. And, I've used this analogy many times before, but, you're building, even if you are building a home that you've built before, it's still a one of a kind that you're building outside in the elements. Mm-hmm. Let's say it takes 8 months to a year, and, in your case, maybe, and you've got, I think of like Ford F-150, they're probably putting off 100,000 trucks a year and they have callbacks on them, but they're building them in a factory, same color, same parts, built by machines, and they can't even get those right.
Right.
I mean, we're dealing with people and weather and customers changing it even though you're trying to curb changes. I'm sure they somewhat happen to some degree. Anyway, I always say it's kind of amazing we get as much right as we do, because it's super difficult with all those factors on top of it. So I applaud you guys for setting, some boundaries, because I'm guessing that's when you really took off.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So we're trying to bring, the reason it's really close to home is, we're trying to bring some order to custom home building, and it's not easy because, we're in the business of pleasing our clients. Client wants to, they want you to jump and you say, how high, mm-hmm. And so, I want to build a pool. Okay, we'll figure it out. You probably shouldn't have a pool on the second floor, but if it's really what you want, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
And so by saying yes to everything, it definitely slows the process down.
Yeah, and it obviously impacts their experience. I think one thing we've really learned over the years is sometimes saying no is in the best interest of them as well, and, part of our responsibility is delivering on that experience and being, kind of that builder of choice. And we want to educate them about the right way to go about building a home. And it's not just saying yes to everything.
I just had this last week actually, and it was in the best interest of the client. So we do and have done even right before COVID cost plus. And, but I'm thinking about going back to fixed bid on certain things, on certain homes and certain price points. And this particular client really wants a controlled outcome. And I said, well, the only way I can really control the outcome is if you make all your selections ahead of time and we do fixed bid. Let us take the risk and manage it for you. And at the contract table, they just couldn't let it go. They felt like they just needed to see everything, open book, which is fine. We do a lot of construction that way. I don't think it's in their best interest. And not that they're super smart people and they definitely know it, but we don't want our clients I'm also trying to be in charge of their experience. The person who's driving your cruise boat, wants you to have a good time. He does not want you driving the cruise boat.
Right.
And so now I'm a little concerned, as anyone is in this situation, that, now they're going to be so dialed in on each invoice or each whatever, which is their prerogative. And I know that, but I'm trying to deliver a good experience. Like you're not choosing us, to build your house yourself. You're choosing us because we can build an incredible home for you.
Right.
Let us do our job. And so we'll see. Check back with me in a year.
Yeah.
We'll do Ryan Jones part 2.
There
This
you
will be
go.
really Mark Williams therapy. So we'll see how it goes. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see where it goes.
Nice.
What from a your past experience, obviously in your metro studies and land, what are some of those things that you've brought to the table now with Stonegate? I mean, are you mentioned before you're not really doing modeling to the degree that you were doing for metro studies, but how have you felt like those skills help you in today's market in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, we're modeling not to the scale, probably that I was doing for those bigger builders on just bigger pieces. I think, again, really the dashboards, the discipline, the being proactive, trying to make things predictable. That's what puts us in the best position to kind of be successful. And I think also bringing in, bringing more people along throughout, through the numbers, through the good and the bad, helping them understand, how these things all come together. And that's been a big part as well. I mean, with any of this, if you don't have the right people and the right support around, you're not going to succeed.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And we have an amazing group of people. I'm very fortunate to be able to work alongside of them. They really make us look good. They all really understand what their role is. They understand the importance of, recognizing if there's something that needs, some assistance or help or support, and leaning in on that and challenging. We're always, no one's afraid to speak up. And I think, those are the things that have really allowed us to move forward. It's about progress, not perfection. And I think we've all kind of learned how to move things forward in a successful way.
How you mentioned, this idea that people on your team have an open voice to speak. I've often told my clients in the past that, you don't want to surround yourself with a bunch of yes men and women. Like you want to empower people to give their opinion. And I often explain why that, gets the best. And I said, it's okay if the designer, and obviously not custom setting here, but like, it's okay if the designer and the builder and the architect maybe are not obviously being respectful of each other, but I like it actually when people fight for their ideas. Because I feel like, the one thing that isn't often talked about in custom design anyway is that, we're asking for the client to give their opinion. And, I like to, can I get their personality into the home some way? And it could be through the interior designer, could be through architecture. Even I'm sure the plans that people are picking, I'm guessing probably is indicative somewhat of their personality.
Absolutely.
And so I think that would actually be kind of fascinating of your West Coast, East Coast, North Coast, and South, like to see like how does it fit into certain stereotypes and things like that. I would find that fascinating. How vertically integrated are you? I mean, are you guys handling your own finance, your own land buying and developing? Like, how does that work?
We do have a land kind of division. that went. So we do a little bit of both. We do our own land acquisition and development. And then we also have our developer partners that we just buy finished lots from.
Okay.
And I would say, there's pros and cons to both of those. And I think for us, it's a company of our size. I think what we've done well is continue to be a little diversified, and so to not have everything all in one. So we're not all self-developing all of our lots, and then kind of sitting there with all this land when if the market softens and now we're dealing with these rates where we're at, and maybe some uncertain conditions moving forward. Not having to hold all that land is reduces our risk and exposure.
So you're a good person to ask this question, at least in the Minnesota market. For those listening that are in the state of Minnesota, this would be applicable. But like from a price point standpoint, you're in a number of different price points.
Yes.
Because your lowest is what?
550.
And your highest was
$2 million.
I mean, that's a massive range. Wow, that's incredible. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing right now. And I'll just maybe lead with this. Someone just asked me this morning over coffee, what have I seen over the last year? And for me personally, I would say, last October of 22, when interest rates went to that 6-7%, things really, just stopped. Now, that being said, it usually gets pretty quiet for interest between, October and the new year. And then I would say January, people are just getting caught back up from being on Christmas break. And so I would say that spring in Minnesota is the first warm day in March. Yep. Your phone's ring off the hook and you're like, oh, it's spring's here, and it's not. Surprise. But anyway, for me this year, it wasn't until June, because usually we had a lot of work. So we were fine through September, but it really wasn't until I would say June that all of a sudden the design contracts started coming forward. And now, that's putting us in getting a couple of homes in really late this year, right, and some in the winter, which is not what I would have liked to do, but just kind of is what it is. But that, my price point is kind of in the $1.5 million to $5 million or whatever range. What are you seeing in your different segments in terms of what's moving, what's not moving? Give me some broad perspective of the Minnesota market.
Yeah. And I would say for us, and some of this is, certainly a product of locations of where we are in. But we've seen, pretty consistent across all of our price points in this past year.
So they've been same. So they're all price points are tracking about the same?
Yes.
Wow.
For us.
Okay.
Again, I think the variable certainly being is the locations of each of the different product and the price points those are in, that we have stronger submarkets that might be doing well regardless of what the market conditions are. And so some of that plays into it.
So what you're saying, well, and I guess I have a twofold question follow up here. So let's just use the easy number 100. So if you built 100 homes last year, you are looking at the same rate of homes being sold in a calendar year is what you're saying that you did the year before? So if you did 100 last year, you're going to do 100 this year?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of rough, pretty consistent.
Pretty consistent.
Yep.
What I was getting at more is is there different segments within that are higher or lower? You're saying that each segment is roughly the same as it was the year before as well?
Yeah, I'd say it's about the same in terms of that. I mean, our kind of our north and our west collections are a bigger part of our, probably make up greater than, probably 60% of our sales are just in those two. And really our east collection was more recently introduced this year. So it's been a much smaller, section of it. But our south collections, we, at any given time, we really have one true villa neighborhood. So it's not as though we have 3 or 4 that are allowing us to produce 30% of our activity from them.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, when I asked the question, I was thinking that the middle range would be depressed, that, we have such a need for housing in Minnesota. We're 90,000 units short. So I thought, man, for sure, anything under 700 is still got to be cooking along, although interest rates are going to make that difficult. And then the higher price point range would probably be fine. I was suspecting your answer was going to be, hey, between 700 and 1.2 would have been slower than the year before. I mean, it's great to hear that it's, I guess, staying pretty steady.
Yeah. I mean, again, I feel like at every price point, there's some demand out there. And I mean, certainly from this market, I mean, what do we build, 10,000, 12,000 homes here in the Twin Cities.
I should know the stat. I don't know that.
Maybe even more. I know back when I was,
I think it's higher than that, actually.
Tracking.
Yeah.
I think we were up to like 30 or 35,000 back at kind of its peak. And we might be trending along. Maybe we're closer to 15,000 now or something. So I mean, us looking for 100, it's not that big of a market share.
Right. No, I get that, but yeah, that's impressive. Regardless, how do you guys handle service? And I asked this question thinking like, man, do I start a little service company? Do I hire it out? And so the tail is always a little brutal. And I know it's brutal regardless of whether you're at scale or small like me. Service is always a difficult one. But how do you? I mean, you guys are doing 100 homes. I'm guessing you have some sort of service department.
Yeah, our warranty department. We've got 2 full-time on staff, and we've been able to kind of manage over the years with that.
Do you offer to other people outside of your company, or that's only for Stonegate?
It's only for Stonegate.
Yep. Has there been any, service is such a hot commodity, especially for the young, under 50, they don't want to do anything.
Right.
My grandma's 96. She'd probably still be cleaning out her gutters if, we didn't steal her ladder. So it's like this demographic thing is very interesting on what people want to do versus what they can do. Have you guys ever entertained the idea of like creating, service? Because you have all the skill sets, you have the people, you could certainly scale that up, or is that just like, wow, that's one more business we don't need to run?
Well, I think any of these, potential business, kind of opportunities are things that we want to consider. I think, my focus has continually been to, let's keep focused on what we really do well and what, at the end of the day kind of pays the bills.
Yep.
And as long as we keep getting that in a good position and a good, predictable, scalable, consistently profitable growth, bottom line, then I think then we have the bandwidth and ability, and we have the skill to look at those other opportunities. But I sometimes worry about, kind of introducing something because it's that shiny object that can pull people away, and then we put a bunch of resources into this. And anything you're starting up, you really want to try to get successful. So you put a bunch of time and resources into it. And I think that can really impact, the core business.
Oh, so you're starting a podcast?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. That seems, I felt like I just had my vision read through a little glass ball. What? Oh, man. Regarding labor in-house, do you guys self-perform some of your own labor? Is everything trade?
We try not to. I mean, a few little things here and there, our PMs and assistant stuff will, tackle. But I mean, really, again, most of the stuff is, hey, we've contracted you guys to do this, and this is what needs to get done. So
how do you handle job site cleanliness? That's always a hot topic.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say we don't have that figured out, and if anybody does, I'm open.
Yes, please come help.
Suggestions. It's a constant thing. We're continuing to, we're really kind of trying to continue to look for ways for our field team to have them be at their highest and best, and we are adding some additional support staff to really kind of address those things. That, it's obviously a very important part of the business, but our project managers, again, we want them really focused on, building the homes, the big pieces, and making sure that the schedule is adhered to, and things are kind of moving along, and having to kind of circle back with every trade about sweeping and cleaning it up is just not what they should be spending time on. But we keep circling back with the trades and holding them accountable. And
do you back charge them if you have to clean it?
We at times have. I mean, it's a slippery slope with some back charges, and I think we've probably at times felt like, oh man, we're everyone now we're sending it back, but we know that they've done favors for us on things.
I know
And
it's tough. And where I was going with this is, I mean, I was a kid, growing up on my dad's job sites. I mean, that was my first job, right? Sweeping the house.
Yep.
And it used to be able to get high school kids. We always said the best sweepers were, cross country runners or wrestlers. you
Yeah.
know, and so we used to always try to hire wrestlers, I remember. And now it seems like it's a lot harder to get the high school kids. They're so busy too. I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't also work. I mean, it's not like they can get out in the middle of the day to sweep your houses. They're at school, and unless it's a summer job. But we struggle with that as well. And maybe I have a couple subs that are really good at keeping the job clean, but then the next guy in keeps it a mess, and then they either get upset or they're like, man, why do I even try to do
Right.
such a good job? So there's a bit of I actually just had a funny idea when you were there, like, who is amazing at keeping things clean? We need a group of moms.
Yeah.
And we need every subcontractor has to list who their mom is and their phone number.
Yeah.
It's like, keeping them, it's like, I have 3 little kids right now. So it's like, getting them to, put their Legos away
Yep.
and put their pajamas away after they change, or, make their bed, or all these kinds of things. Honestly, we need a mom group to tell us how to get all these messy boys to keep their houses clean.
Exactly.
Because the guys can't self-medicate. We don't know how to do it.
No, because it's not working.
No, it's definitely not working. The only ones I know that have done it successfully are basically you have a full-time laborer that you pay, and then they go up. And I could see, I mean, if you had enough money in the budget to do that, why that would make a lot of sense. I mean, I would know if I'm a cabinet maker or an HVAC guy, and I come up on the job site and it's being cleaned for me, like that would, I mean, honestly, that would be amazing. I would really appreciate that. And there are some, companies that I know that do that.
Mhm.
But you really have to know your numbers on, I mean, essentially it's a job of a cost. So it is going to add to the cost of your home.
Yeah.
And I've had it before where I've had a client before ask me, like, I wish my house was cleaner. And I said, well, would you be willing to pay for that? And I said, no.
Yeah.
So, it's hard as a business owner. Then how do I make a decision to do something like that if they're not willing to pay for it?
Yeah.
And then you hear stories where people win jobs because their site is so cleanly,
Right.
So clean that it's amazing. So I don't know where to go with that.
Yeah, it's a tough one to solve for sure. It's constant, kind of putting it on the onus of your trades, because this is what you pay for. It's in your scope of work to leave the job site clean for the next one, and so then you're kind of like, well, geez, now I'm already paying for someone to do it who's not doing it, and now I'm going to pay someone else to come in and do it. And then again, once they see it, it's good, but then no one's going to do it if they know we have someone who's going to do it for them. So it's a tough one for sure.
I've tried. I actually have it on my schedule, and I delete it every month. I have it says it's a full day blocked out that says mark clean job sites. Because I mean, if you're the owner of the company and you're cleaning the job site, it would send a pretty powerful message. So I believe in that message. Problem is, I'm already so strapped with time. It's like I can't possibly give a half day. So I have it on the schedule, and every month, like I said, I delete. I'm like, I've got to go meet a client and sell. I always justify why not to do it. So I believe in it, but clearly I don't believe it enough to enforce it on myself. So it's something I would still like to do. And it's funny because my dad's 73 now, but it'd be kind of fun to that's a good idea. This is my new idea. I'm going to put my dad on the invite.
There you go.
And my mom. There we go. Yeah.
Get the whole family.
Yeah. We'll do the Williams cleaning crew.
Perfect.
Actually,
there you go.
I'm actually going to try that. We'll, maybe if I tell myself I'll videotape it and try to do some sort of social media aspect with it, I'll be more motivated.
That's true. There you go.
So we just finished celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Parade of Homes here in Minnesota, which is the oldest tour in the country. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Take it for granted being from Minnesota. But what has the parade, meant to you, in your career so far?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably had you get some love-hate with the parade. It puts a big time crunch to kind of speed up and get things done and ready for it. And I feel, early on we were constantly scrambling in order to get everything done by the deadlines, get them in, get them finished. We were, still siding the house as, people were walking up and stuff. And so it became kind of almost where I was like, oh God, the parade. You do all this stuff for then everybody
so much work.
And then, people to just come in and ask you what the paint colors are and stuff. But that was more probably, if you look back on it, more of an issue with us, not being prepared and organized and ready. And over these last several years, as we've really, through a lot of our work on our construction team and operations, it's really become something we're and again, it should have never come as a surprise because it's literally the same, spring and fall dates every single year. Even though some people, it's moved a little.
Yeah.
But it was always like, geez, this shouldn't have snuck up on us. We know it's coming. But now it's become something that we're ready for, and we have our houses, finished and staged and ready to go, and it's exciting.
How many homes will you guys in a year? So for those not from Minnesota, we have our spring, which is usually end of February, beginning of March, or the full month of March, and then the month of September. If you're building 100 homes, how many of those homes will be in a parade event?
Yeah, so we usually enter, 6 to 10 each one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. I can see why. Oh, wow. Yeah. Actually, the most I ever did, and for a small builder, this is a lot. I did 5 in 1 year. And it was a spring parade, a spring remodeler showcase, an artisan tour. I think I had a luxury remodel and then a fall parade. And it was just like, I don't think I had kids that year. Maybe I had one kid. My wife would, I think she might burn me at the stake if I try to do that again. And that was too much. But to your point, I mean, it's a lot. I think, it's really important to me, the parade. I love doing it. I love seeing the people, but it is a colossal amount of work, marketing, and really to do it right, it just takes a lot of focus and a lot of energy. And I'm certainly thankful that we have the support of, in this case, Minnesota Housing First, and really our peers. I mean, I love to get out and look at, the other builders and get ideas. And, it's a small world. And even the podcast, now it's, I don't have to go as a competitor. I'm going as a curious builder.
Yeah. And
I just want to hey, how's it going? Well, what are you guys working on? What's you doing? Because I'm just a big fan of our industry and would love to shine a spotlight on the people that are in it, because they're really hardworking people that have a lot of great ideas, and their stories need to be shared.
Absolutely. And I do I know James Bogley well. We kind of have been in the business over the years together, and I'm excited that he's kind of leading things over there, and really excited about what they can bring to our industry and group here in the years to come. But I think they've done a great job of just being consistent. And as now with the podcast or with social media, I mean, it's really like it's something you got to do, every day, every week. It's consistency. People come if you're going to be successful, they come to expect it, and you got to deliver. And I think Housing First has done that over the years, and whether it's been a strong year or a bad year, they've set it up to be successful. They've run it well. They've promoted it, and it's no surprise that they're kind of nationally leading in that space, because they've really made it a priority. And I think we've all benefited from that.
100%.
Not just from the people walking through the parade, but just giving us something each spring and fall to kind of build towards, and it helps keep us on track.
You're right. I mean, it's creating markers in the in the journey of life, or I guess this marathon, right? There's different mile markers, and there's aid stations, and these are definitely aid stations and kind of ways to pass the time. Like, okay, what's next? And it's always funny, right? Because the parade just ends, and I think the next deadline for the next tour of it, I always now we do more of the artisan tours because they line up better with our schedule and they fit our brand. But if I have a home that's gonna fit, I'll definitely be in the parade. And but it's such a timing thing. It's like, to your point, it shouldn't sneak up on me. I've been doing this for 20 years, and my dad did it for 25 years before me, and yet somehow you get that notice in your email, like first week of November, oh, are you going to sign up for the spring parade? You're like, what? We just got done with the parade.
I just made the list after the big night. Kind of that next day, I was like, all right, well, let's get the list going so that we're ready to go, and for spring.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. As we kind of wrap up here, I was asked this question, how do you like to self-educate? How do you like to learn? And, what do you do to kind of continue evolving?
Yeah. I really, it really comes down to the people that I'm kind of surrounding myself with, whether it be those that I work with, those just in the industry and the business, and, my friends and family. I think as I've, gotten older, it's asking questions and listening, and just engaging with people on kind of a real level. And I think, you find those good relationships with people, and you guys, can grow together, and you challenge each other, and just having good conversations, I feel like has really been the thing that's kind of kept me going and motivated. And when you break it down to, again, as you're seeing with probably this experience, which, we chatted a little bit before, but once you break it down to its core of real human to human, kind of conversation, you really start to learn, that, we're all trying to do the same thing, and we're all, doing our best or trying, and we all have our strengths and flaws, and that's okay.
100%.
And I think that's, also what motivates me. Motivates me with my kids, in kind of raising them, and, just exposing them to conversations and challenging them, and to be open and be vulnerable, because that's when you're going to be able to learn.
Yeah, 100% agree with that statement. I mean, ultimately, the podcast has kind of revealed that for me in a different way too. I mean, you use the word networking a lot, but I think you articulate it much better in the terms of like, networking is just a way to get together, but it's the meaningful conversations and really the depth of the conversation. I think also realizing that, in business, you're not alone, because like business is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Building is hard. We've already talked about how difficult building can be, but I think realizing that, of course, you have your social media platforms, you have these things, and of course, you want to showcase your best work. Who doesn't? If you're going to go, on a date, you're going to dress up and, look nice, because that's, you want to present well. But that doesn't mean that like the building part of it wasn't really hard. And so I think as you talk to more and more builders and realize like, oh man, I'm not the only one that's having a hard time. I'm not the only one struggling to come up with my KPIs. I'm
Right. Yeah.
I'm not there's a lot of comfort, motivation, and in some ways peace that comes with it, and realizing like, okay, we're kind of all doing this together.
Yeah. I think you kind of hit it with the peace thing. I think that, you can constantly just get caught up in your own head, and scrambling, and trying to define what success is, and what it is, and it's that can be exhausting, and draining and difficult, and if by talking to someone, and getting a little bit below the surface, you get a little bit more peace. I mean, it makes you you sleep better. Your next day, your business, you're clearer, you can, attack challenges, and you're kind of, again, you're driven a little bit more when you have that peace.
I had a good friend of mine on the podcast, and she had said I forget what the time frame was, but a couple of years ago, someone asked her how she grew her business. And she said, I said yes to every opportunity. And I think there is a lot of benefit in that statement. I think everything has to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt. But recently, her new motto is say no to everything. And I just thought it was really interesting in different phases of life that have led to some of these things. And she's at a better place herself, and I, just being someone that has a lot of energy, and I love saying yes to the new shiny thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to say no, because I love saying yes.
Yeah.
And we have a consultant that we're working with right now, actually Jordan Diorio. She was on a couple episodes ago, and she had just said, she had challenged me between now and the new year to say no to more and more things. And she's like, get super clear on like 3 things that you want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I think this is almost like, we're talking about New Year's resolutions already. And, but the idea was that, so many people have all these ideas and then don't follow through on them. So just make one, start with one. Don't overcomplicate it. And as a business owner, I don't do this, by the way.
Yeah.
But I value that input. I would actually strive to try to do that. I feel like this, for right now, one of the things I would like to do for my team is, I overbook myself. I overcommit to all these things. And I feel like in some ways my team suffers because I don't give them enough time of me. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is to try to create more space so that I can be there for my own team. I mean, you obviously do that for your family, of course, but, I need to be more mindful of that as well. But really for my team is when I'm at work.
Yeah. And it kind of, one of the things from a business standpoint and personally, and I try to remind myself it's I don't know if you've read the book, the One Thing, but, kind of breaking it down to that, kind of like, what's the one thing that I can do, today or this week that is going to have the greatest impact on other things? That's kind of where you put your, prioritize and your effort and energy. Because essentially that one thing you do is going to help, 4 or 5 10 other things out there. And it's tough.
Isn't it funny how wisdom or age or experience seems to exemplify that more? I'm not that young or that old. I'm just kind of in the middle. I'm 43. And there's so many times I wish oh man, I wish I could go back to being 25 or 26. And I'm not a calm person no one's going to describe me as being calm, but I'm certainly calmer now than I was when I was 25.
Yeah.
And it'd be fun to bring that sort of mindset, and, nobody can get a do-over on any of this stuff, but it is kind of interesting how you move along and you become, I love looking at people, and I've had mentors that are even my clients sometimes where, they've been successful business owners or whatever they are. And you just kind of you look at them, you're like, I really appreciate how calm it seems like the people that that I find myself gravitating towards as showing me an example of what I could or want to become are people that are very competent, all those things, but really they're just really at peace and really at ease with who and what they are. And I don't have an issue personally with that side of it, but more like they're fine with whatever I just did today, right now is enough. I don't have to worry about the 87 things on my to-do list tomorrow. And I'm not there yet. Personally, I'm a work in progress there.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Ryan. Appreciate it. For those that are listening, where can they reach out and find more about Stonegate and you directly?
StonegateBuilders.com is where you find anything on what we're doing out there in the Twin Cities.
Very good. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you at the next Parade of Homes.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at CuriousBuilderPodcast.com.